was calculate what we call cluster focus index scores. So we're really interested when we identify a cluster of bloggers, well, what defines their behavior? What do they link to more than everybody else across the map? What words and phrases do they use more than everybody else across the map? That gives us a sense of the kind of issues that are important to them, the rhetoric that is useful with them, as well as the places that they go for their information. What are their watering holes? So here we find a particular cluster in energy policy, and this just happened. Well, here we see at the top we see the sites that everybody links to, so that's things like YouTube, Wikipedia, New York Times. And here we see the sites that this cluster prefers, what these folks link to that far out of proportion to the network in general. And so this is what the grassroots conservatives link to: Town Hall, WorldNet Daily, American Thinker, etc. We do the same thing with their words. So here are some of the phrases related to energy policy that they use. They talk about cap and trade, global warming, green jobs, energy costs, domestic energy. So these are the grassroots conservatives. And one thing you'll notice about conservatives is they talk a lot about cost and a lot about energy security and a lot about stuff that is rhetoric that's designed to make you want to drill for more oil and to be concerned about producing a lot more energy and not feeling like your energy supply is threatened. If we look at the grassroots liberals, we see that they link to a totally different set of websites: ActBlue, Talking Points Memo, other sorts of stuff, and they use a different rhetoric. They are using different words and phrases around energy. So they talk about climate change legislation. They talk about clean energy. They talk about energy independence, et cetera. So the way they're talking about energy in this cluster is very different. We can also look at the environmentalists. They link to EPA and gristmill and other sorts of stuff. And they also talk about energy in a different way. They talk about energy technology, carbon capture, plug-in hybrids, coal plants, biofuel. So we see the way that different clusters on the map are dealing with this issue in different ways. The climate cynics have a set of websites which they go to, some .orgs that feed them with their more or less absurd ideas. And they talk a lot about climate skeptics, global warming causes, global warming issues, causes of global warming. So trying to throw doubt on the causality involved with global warming is what they are up to. And then we can look at the medical science folks, and they've got a whole bunch of other stuff. Kevin MD, I'm sorry, now we're looking at the healthcare policy. Diabetes Mind, Healthline. So we see that those non-politicized bloggers who are nonetheless blogging around healthcare are mainly concerned with diseases. They're not so much concerned with policy details. They also do, however, talk about health reform legislation, talk about long-term care, community-based health care, quality health care. So one other thing that's interesting is, we're very concerned not just with kind of what the raw data spits out, but in understanding what these sites are and what this tells us about how different organizations, for instance, are doing at communicating their target message to their target audience. So a lot of our clients now on the company side are essentially doing advocacy messaging or issue-based messaging, and they often don't really understand, well, who out there cares about this issue and how do they care about it, and what are the sources of information that are important to them. And so we're able to mine this blog data to figure some of that out. So you can see examples of how different organizations appeal to different parts of the map. So grist.org is an environmental oriented site, and it really appeals much more to the political bloggers at the top, although it does pick up a lot of the green environmentalist bloggers. But contrast that with Treehugger, which is much less politicized, much more general consumer oriented, and you pick up so much more of the general population outside of the political clusters. We found that often the most important thing in politics, monitoring the blogosphere, is not what's going on in the political clusters, because you can expect a right-wing echo chamber to do what you would expect it to do, and a left-wing echo chamber to do what you'd expect it to do. So actually monitoring political bloggers is often a very poor way to figure out what's going on in politics among the general population. It's the non-political bloggers and their behavior which is more indicative of widespread trends. Healthcare policy, so we see some examples of organizations that are doing a pretty good job. So this is the Kaiser Family Fund, which really helped to design the advocacy campaign pro-reform, especially a kind of a centrist message to get consumers working with business to come up with reform ideas. And they've done a very good job of hitting across the blogosphere, getting attention from bloggers in political clusters, but even some on the conservative side, as well as some of the folks in the science medical community. Contrast that with an organization like Healthcare Now, which has done basically a good job of activating the liberal echo chamber. So they've done a good job of messaging to their friends. This is what we find often in these highly politicized conversations, is that one side basically creates a bunch of messaging which just stays in the loop of their own team. And the other side creates a bunch of messaging that stays in the loop of their team. And you don't really get much talking to one another or to the general public. So, for instance, Heritage has been active here, and they're pretty good at just messaging to conservatives. Cato is even better at messaging only to the conservatives on healthcare policy.